I smoothed the wrinkles from my burgundy blouse, adjusting it one last time. At 74, I'd learned to dress appropriately for family gatherings, not too fancy to irritate Sarah, but respectable enough not to look shabby. Michael had said dinner would be at 6:30, and I still had 40 minutes. Looking around my cozy living room, every item held memories. A photo of Robert at our 50th anniversary, young Michael with his first trophy, Emma and Daniel at their graduation. These silent witnesses reminded me of simpler times when family meant something deeper. My eyes lingered on Robert's portrait. What would he say now? 15 years since his passing, and I still seek his wisdom. "Margaret, don't let them walk all over you," he'd warn. Robert knew how to set boundaries, even with our own children. I never learned that skill. My phone buzzed on the coffee table. A text from Michael. Smiling, I reached for my reading glasses, expecting details about tonight. Maybe he needed help getting to their new place, though he rarely offered such assistance anymore. "Mom, sorry, but we have to cancel tonight. Sarah is hosting colleagues for dinner. We'll reschedule soon." I reread the message, confusion growing. Michael had called yesterday, insisting I attend, mentioning some important announcement. Then another notification appeared. "You're not welcome at dinner. My wife doesn't want you there." My hands trembled. My heart felt crushed by icy fingers. This couldn't be from Michael, not my son. But there was his name, his number. I sank into my armchair, clutching the phone like a lifeline. Memories flooded back. Little Michael clinging to my dress on his first school day. Teenage Michael asking awkwardly about girls. Adult Michael introducing Sarah with such joy. Now this, cold, distant, cruel. Was this sudden or just honest for once? How many dinners had they discussed excluding me? How many smiles were fake? My gaze fell on a glossy brochure, Riverside Gardens Estates, their new home. A 4-bedroom colonial with river views, for which I'd provided the $95,000 down payment 8 months ago. "Mom, it's an investment in our future," Michael had said. "A place for family gatherings. Your room will be ready too." My room, apparently no longer mine. I remembered signing those bank papers. The manager's surprised expression. "Are you certain, Mrs. Henderson? It's a substantial amount." I was certain. Robert had left me comfortable, and helping our son felt right. There were other investments after that. A new sedan for Michael, private tutoring for Daniel with his learning challenges, the kitchen renovation Sarah had dreamed of. Each time I wrote checks, each time it felt justified. And what did I receive? Rare phone calls, obligatory holiday visits, and now this text. I walked to the antique secretary desk, inherited from my grandmother. The top drawer held financial documents, folders with receipts, statements, canceled checks. The folder marked Michael was thickest. Opening it, I found a $15,000 check for his failed consulting venture, receipts for Sarah's real estate courses, bills for their previous home's roof repairs, Daniel's car insurance. How many things had I funded? How many times had I helped, supported, rescued, only to be banned from the doorstep of a house I'd purchased? My phone vibrated again. A message from someone else. Emma, my granddaughter. "Grandma, are you coming today? I missed you so much." My hand hovered over the keyboard. Emma had always been different, genuine, caring. Even when her parents and brother forgot I existed, she made time to visit, call, ask about my well-being. I typed slowly, "Sweetie, it seems your parents think it's best I stay home tonight." Seconds later, "What? Why? Dad said yesterday you absolutely had to come." So Emma didn't know. I imagined her standing in that new house, the house I'd financed, confused and hurt. My gaze returned to the file folder. All these years, I thought I was buying love and respect. Instead, I was merely renting their attention, and the lease had expired. I picked up my phone and dialed Community First Bank. After several rings, a polite voice answered. "Good evening, Community First Bank. How may I assist you?" "Good evening. This is Margaret Henderson. I need to inquire about automatic payments from my account." "Certainly, Mrs. Henderson. I'll need to verify your identity first." As she asked security questions, a plan crystallized in my mind. Clear, decisive, fair. "Thank you for confirmation, Mrs. Henderson. How can I help you?" "I want to cancel all automatic payments and transfers from my accounts, every single one." Brief pause. "All payments, Mrs. Henderson. You have quite a few." "Yes, all of them. I also need to revoke the power of attorney I granted my son, Michael Henderson." "I see. This is a significant change, Mrs. Henderson. Perhaps you should visit our branch for detailed consultation." "I'll come tomorrow morning to sign documents," I interrupted. "But I need the process started today. Is that possible?" Another pause. "Yes, we can temporarily suspend all payments until your visit, but we'll need your signature for permanent cancellation." "Perfect. Suspend everything immediately." As she typed, I looked at Robert's picture. "You were right, honey. You can't let people treat you like a doormat, even your own children." "Ready, Mrs. Henderson. Temporary suspension activated. You have a total of..." She paused. "186 regular payments and transfers, all blocked until your branch visit." I had no idea there were so many. 186 ways I'd supported my son and his family. "Thank you. I'll be there when you open." I hung up and felt strange relief, like a heavy burden had suddenly lifted. The phone vibrated again. Michael. Emma must have told him something. I didn't bother answering. Instead, I composed a brief message. "Then fund your own lifestyle." My finger hovered over send. Was I ready to burn this bridge I'd built with money and patience? But hadn't they destroyed it first by denying me basic respect? By deciding I wasn't needed, not even in the house I'd purchased? I pressed send, then turned off the phone. In my quiet living room, I felt unexpected calm. For the first time in years, I'd acted not for my son or his family, but for myself. It was liberating. I retrieved an old photo album from the closet. Flipping through pages of my life, my wedding to Robert, Michael's birth, family vacations, I realized somewhere along the way I'd lost myself. I'd dissolved into others' needs, forgetting my own desires and dignity. Robert always said, "Margaret, don't let anyone take you for granted." Even on his deathbed, he made me promise to care for myself as I cared for others. I hadn't kept that promise, until today. I closed the album, removed the blouse I'd chosen for dinner, and changed into comfortable clothes. I made tea and picked up a book I'd wanted to read, but kept postponing for endless family obligations. Tomorrow would be new, a day to start fresh without financial chains binding me to people who didn't value my help or me. 186 receipts. 186 reasons to move forward. I sipped tea and opened the book, savoring the silence and freedom of choice. My phone stayed off, and my heart, for the first time in years, beat steady and calm. Community First Bank opened at 9 a.m., but I arrived 20 minutes early. The night had been surprisingly peaceful. First time I'd slept without medication in months. Determination gave me strength. When the doors opened, I was the first customer. The young teller smiled welcomingly. "Good morning. How can I help you?" "I need to see Mrs. Patterson," I replied. Linda Patterson had worked there almost 25 years, the person Robert and I always consulted. Minutes later, I sat in Linda's office. She hadn't changed much. Same neat silver hair, same attentive eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. "Margaret, good to see you." She shook my hand. "I was informed about yesterday's call. All 186 payments have been suspended as requested. Is everything all right?" I looked her straight in the eye. "I want to cancel them permanently and revoke Michael's access to my accounts." Linda removed her glasses, cleaning them with a tissue. something I'd noticed when she was processing important decisions. "Margaret, we've known each other for years. Are you certain? It's quite a drastic step." "I'm absolutely certain." She nodded and began typing. "I'll prepare the necessary documents. This will take time. You have many automatic payments." While the system generated paperwork, Linda pulled out a thick folder. "Here are printouts of your regular transactions from the past year. Might be helpful to review so you don't miss anything." I opened the folder. Pages of statements, each line representing money flowing from my pocket to my family's. The first receipt: monthly mortgage payment for Michael and Sarah's new house, $2,900. I remembered Michael showing me that house. "Mom, this is perfect for our family and you too. There's a guest suite on the main floor, no stairs to climb." A guest suite I'd never used, which they now prohibited me from entering. Next receipt: insurance on Sarah's luxury SUV, necessary for her professional image, $720 quarterly. I continued reading. Country club membership for Sarah's networking, private orthodontist for Daniel's specialized treatment, Emma's college tuition, the only expense I didn't regret. Each receipt brought back conversations, requests, sometimes tears. "Mom, we're so tight financially right now." "Grandmother, this is essential for my career." "Margaret, you wouldn't want your grandson to suffer, would you?" Receipt after receipt, page after page, a map of my naivety and their greed. "Here's the paperwork to cancel all payments." Linda's voice brought me back to reality. "And the power of attorney revocation form. Please read carefully and sign if you agree." I took the pen and signed without hesitation. "Margaret," Linda lowered her voice, "if you need help or advice, I'm here." "Thank you, Linda." I smiled genuinely for the first time in months. Everything is finally okay. Walking out of the bank, I felt lighter, like shedding invisible weight that had dragged me down for years. My next stop? My attorney's office. Francis Coleman had worked with our family since Robert's time. His beard had grown grayer, his glasses thicker, but the sharp gleam in his eyes remained. "Mrs. Henderson. What a pleasant surprise." He gestured to a chair. "What can I do for you?" "I want to change my will," I said calmly, "and establish a living trust to protect my assets." Francis raised an eyebrow. "May I ask what prompted this decision?" "Family circumstances have changed." I didn't elaborate. "I need to know how to legally manage my finances without interference from my son or his family." He nodded without prying. "Several options available. Let's discuss each one." We spent an hour reviewing irrevocable trusts, financial powers of attorney, and contingent will provisions. Francis took notes, explaining legal complexities. I felt strangely free making these decisions. When we finished, my phone showed 12 missed calls from Michael, 6 from Sarah, and 2 from Daniel. None from Emma. "Shall I have the paperwork ready by week's end?" Francis asked as he walked me to the door. "The sooner the better," I replied. "And Francis, thank you." He nodded understandingly. "You know, Margaret, Robert always said you were stronger than you appeared. I'm glad to see he was right." I left the office with a slight smile. Robert, he always saw through me. On the way home, I stopped at the grocery store. For the first time in years, I shopped just for myself, not considering Michael's preferences or Daniel's favorite snacks. It felt strange but pleasant to think only of my own desires. A surprise waited at home. Emma sat on the porch, arms wrapped around her knees. She jumped up when she saw my car. "Grandma!" She rushed over, helping with groceries. "I've been calling all day. Why didn't you answer?" I looked at my granddaughter carefully. Emma resembled me at her age. Same auburn hair, same stubborn worry lines between her eyebrows. "I've had a busy day, dear." I opened the door. "Come in and tell me what's happening." We entered the kitchen. Emma sat at the table, fingers drumming nervously on the countertop while I sorted groceries. "Grandma, what's going on? Dad's panicking. He says you've blocked all payments and won't answer your phone." I calmly filled the kettle. "It's true. I've decided to end your family's financial support." "But why?" I could hear genuine bewilderment in her voice. "Did something happen?" I set the kettle on the stove before answering. "Your father canceled my invitation to family dinner last night. Said your mother didn't want me there?" Emma turned pale. "What? No way! Dad's been saying all week how important it was that you come." I showed her the message. Emma covered her mouth as she read, eyes filling with tears. "Oh my God, I didn't know. I swear. This is horrible, Grandma. I don't understand how he could—" I placed tea in front of her. "That was the final straw, Emma. For years, I've paid for everything from your house to Daniel's tennis lessons. All that time, I felt used. Yesterday confirmed it." Emma was silent, staring into her cup. Then she looked up. "You know, I've always seen it. How they take advantage of your kindness. Especially Mom. I tried talking to Dad, but he always defended her." I nodded. Deep down, I'd always known Emma understood more than she showed. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "I mean, they have lots of payments, loans. They'll have to manage independently," I shrugged. "They're adults with good jobs. Michael's a building inspector. Your mother's a successful realtor. They'll survive." The desk phone rang. Michael again. I muted it. "Aren't you going to answer?" Emma asked. "Not today." I shook my head. I need time to process my feelings, and he needs time to realize the consequences of his words. Emma looked at me thoughtfully. "You know, Grandma, I've never seen you so determined." I smiled weakly. I hadn't seen myself like this in years. We finished tea in comfortable silence. When Emma was leaving, she hugged me tighter than usual. "Are you sure you're okay? Want me to stay?" "I'm perfectly fine, dear." I stroked her cheek. "Go on, don't worry about me." She nodded but stopped at the door. "I'm not taking sides in this conflict, Grandma. You understand that, right?" "Of course." I smiled. "This is between me and your parents. It has nothing to do with you." After Emma left, the house grew quiet again. I checked mail. Notice of failed charge on Daniel's credit card. That quickly, apparently my grandson was living beyond his means. I set the letter aside and sat by the window. My phone kept vibrating with messages and calls, but I ignored them. Instead, I pulled out the old photo album, opening to a random page. A picture from 18 years ago, Robert and me, young Michael and Sarah, little Daniel and Emma at a picnic, everyone smiling. When had things changed? When did support become obligation? When did love transform into expectation of financial assistance? I closed the album and walked to the hallway mirror. The woman looking back appeared tired, but something new shone in her eyes, determination I hadn't seen in years. "Time to remember who you are, Margaret Henderson," I told my reflection. The doorbell interrupted my thoughts. My heart jumped. Was it Michael? I peered through the peephole. Laura Mitchell, an old friend, stood on the doorstep with a basket. "Margaret." She hugged me as soon as I opened the door. "I called, but you didn't answer. I thought I'd drop by to make sure you're okay." "Come in, Laura." I let her inside. "Sorry, I turned my phone off. Minor family emergency." Laura set the basket on the table. Homemade muffins and a jar of preserves. "Family problems?" She looked at me carefully. "Sarah again?" Laura had never hidden her opinion of my daughter-in-law. "Predator," she'd called her. "Michael this time." I briefly recounted yesterday's message and my decision. Laura listened without interrupting. When I finished, she took my hand. "Finally," she exclaimed, relief evident. "I'm sorry, Margaret, but I've watched them exploit you for years. How many times I wanted to say enough, but it wasn't my place. I know, I sighed. You were right all along. I just didn't want to see it. So what now? Laura asked, pouring tea. Michael must be panicking. Let him panic. I shrugged. I need time to sort my feelings, and they need to realize what they've lost. We talked through the evening. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a mother or grandmother, just a woman talking to a friend. It was liberating. By the time Laura left, darkness was falling. I decided to finally check my phone. 43 missed calls, 29 messages. I began reading them, my expression souring at the increasingly desperate and demanding tone. Mom, what's going on? Why isn't the mortgage payment going through? Margaret, it's Sarah. We need to talk. It's urgent. Grandma, my card's been declined. I'm stranded downtown with no money. The last text from Michael came 10 minutes ago. Mom, I'm coming over. We need to talk. I felt my muscles tense. Was I ready for this conversation? But there seemed no choice. I turned off the living room light and went to the kitchen, putting the kettle on. I took out my finest cup, the one I only used for special occasions. Today was special. The day Margaret Henderson finally said no. I heard a car pull up and looked out the window. Michael alone, without Sarah. That was unusual. She usually controlled all important conversations. The doorbell rang like a signal for battle. I took a deep breath, squared my shoulders, and opened the door. Michael stood on the doorstep, disheveled. His usually neat shirt was wrinkled, his eyes a mixture of irritation and panic. I silently stepped aside to let him in. Mom, what's going on? He didn't waste time with greetings. All payments have been rejected. The bank says you've revoked all authorizations. We can't pay the mortgage. I went to the kitchen where the kettle was boiling. Do you want tea? I asked calmly, taking out a second cup. What tea? Michael waved his hands desperately. Do you realize what's happening? The bank called about late payment. Sarah's hysterical. I poured boiling water into the teapot and turned to my son. I understand. I've canceled all financial obligations to your family, all 186 payments. I have no intention of resuming them. Michael froze, as if unable to believe what he was hearing. What? Why? He slumped into a chair, staring at me. Is this some kind of joke? You're not welcome at dinner. My wife doesn't want you there. I quoted his message, watching his expression change. That was your message, Michael. Not a joke. My response wasn't a joke either. He went pale and lowered his head. It's not what you think, he started, but I interrupted. What am I supposed to think? That my own son excluded me from the door of the house I paid for? That my daughter-in-law doesn't want me at their table, even though I fund their lifestyle? I placed tea in front of him, but he didn't look at it. Mom, it was stupid. I admit it. I shouldn't have sent that. Sarah was upset, and you decided to make her happy by insulting your mother. I finished for him. How thoughtful, Michael. Mom, please, he said, pleading tone in his voice. We can't manage without your help. We have mortgage, loans, Daniel has to pay for college. I sipped my tea, feeling anger I hadn't let surface in years. Didn't you consider that when you denied me basic respect? When Sarah criticized my clothes? When Daniel missed my birthdays? When you didn't call on the anniversary of your father's death? Michael looked ashamed, but I saw irritation flicker in his eyes. He was always a poor actor. Mom, we appreciate everything you do for us. We do. It's just that sometimes... He hesitated, searching for words. Sometimes there are misunderstandings. We all love you. Even Sarah, even though she doesn't always show it. I looked at my son, a grown man, father of two, who now looked like a little boy caught stealing cookies. Michael, I don't believe you, I said quietly. I don't believe you love me. You love my money, my help, my willingness to solve your problems. But you don't love me. That's not true. He jumped from his chair. How can you say that? Because it's true. I remained seated, keeping my composure. When was the last time you asked how I was feeling? Inquired about my life? Invited me over for no reason? Not when you needed money or help with the kids? Michael opened his mouth but couldn't find anything to say. I continued. Your father always said you can't buy love. I didn't listen. I thought if I was generous enough, helpful enough, you'd appreciate me. I was wrong. Mom? Michael stepped toward me. I understand you're upset. Why don't you let Sarah and me come over this weekend? Talk things through calmly. No, I shook my head. I don't need to. My decision is final. But how are we going to pay for the house? I could hear panic in his voice. The cars? Daniel's tuition? You have good jobs, Michael. So does Sarah. You're adults. You can handle it. He clenched his fists, and I saw irritation on his face change to anger. You can't do this to us! His voice rose. After everything you what? I stood too. What have you done for me, Michael? Name one thing you've done for me unselfishly, expecting nothing in return. He was silent again, and I could see him frantically searching recent years for an example. His silence was more eloquent than words. You see? I sighed. You can't even think of one example. It's not fair. He stepped back. You're putting me in an awkward position. I laughed grimly. What kind of awkward position did you put me in by excluding me from house and family dinner? Michael ran his hand through his hair, a gesture I remembered from his teenage years when he was nervous. It was a mistake, Mom. I've already apologized. What do you want me to do? Get on my knees. I want you to leave, I replied. I need time to think things over. When I'm ready to talk, I'll let you know. But Mom, go away, Michael. My voice was quiet but firm. Please. He stared at me for several seconds, as if unable to believe I was actually dismissing him. Then he silently turned and walked out of the kitchen. I heard the front door slam, then his car engine roaring away from the house. Only when the sound completely faded did I allow myself to sit and exhale. My hands were shaking. Confronting my son was harder than I'd expected. Part of me, the old, familiar part, wanted to run after him, tell him I'd give everything back just so he wouldn't be angry. But I didn't. Instead, I finished the cooled tea and began washing dishes. I needed to keep my hands busy to calm my mind. The phone rang. Sarah. I declined the call. A minute later, a message arrived. Margaret, we need to talk. Michael told me about your conversation. I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding. Let's discuss this like adults. I smiled grimly. Like adults. Sarah always loved that phrase, especially when she wanted to demonstrate her superiority. I didn't respond. The next morning began with a visit from Francis Coleman. He brought papers to sign, new will and trust documents. It's ready, Margaret. He laid papers on the table. As we discussed, the bulk of the estate goes into an irrevocable trust with you as sole beneficiary during your lifetime. Upon your death, assets are distributed according to your instructions, 50% to Emma, 15% to a literacy charity, and the remainder at your discretion. I reviewed the documents carefully. Michael and Daniel received minimum shares required by law. Sarah received nothing. That's correct. I nodded and signed each sheet. Francis watched me with a slight smile. You know, Margaret, in 25 years of practice, I've rarely seen such drastic changes to wills. Usually people hesitate, doubt. I've hesitated enough, Francis. I signed the last document. For years. He nodded and gathered the papers. I'll file these today. You'll receive copies within the week. And Margaret, he paused. If you need legal help with any potential family conflicts, I'm always available. After Francis left, I decided to take a walk. It was a clear day, and fresh air helped clear my mind. I headed toward the park where Robert and I often went on weekends. Taking a seat on a bench, I watched children playing with their parents. A young woman with a little boy caught my eye. She was patiently helping him build a sandcastle, laughing as the structure collapsed. I remembered doing the same with Michael years ago. Where and when had we lost that simple joy of being together? My thoughts were interrupted by my phone ringing. Daniel's number. I hesitated but decided to answer. "Grandma." His voice sounded tense. "Is it true? Did you really cancel all payments?" "Hello, Daniel." I tried to speak calmly. "Yes, it's true." "But why?" He sounded genuinely puzzled. "What happened?" "Dad said something about a misunderstanding, about you being offended by some message." Daniel spoke quickly. "Grandma, my credit card's been declined. I can't pay rent." I sighed. Daniel was always direct, straight to how things affected him personally. "Daniel, you're 21 years old. You work for an accounting firm. Why are you still dependent on my money?" "Well," he hesitated, "you've always been there for me. I'm used to—" "Exactly," I interrupted. "You're all used to it. You took my help for granted, never wondered how I felt when your father wrote that I was unwelcome in the house I was paying for." Silence on the other end. "Did Dad really write that?" Daniel finally asked, disbelief in his voice. "Yes, he did." I didn't soften the blow. "And that was the last straw, Daniel. For years I supported your family, paid for your house, cars, education, even your tennis club. What did I get in return? Disrespect, neglect, and formal visits on holidays." "Grandma, he stammered. "I didn't know you felt that way." "Because none of you ever asked," I said without anger, simply stating fact. "You took and took without thinking about how I felt." Silence again. Then a quiet question. "So what now?" "Now you have to manage on your own," I said calmly. "Like all adults do." "But Grandma—" "I have to go, Daniel," I interrupted. "Think about what I said and how you've all treated me over the years." I ended the call and sat for a while, watching the park. Talking to Daniel left a strange feeling, mixture of sadness and relief. Sadness at realizing how shallow our relationship had been, relief that I'd finally told the truth. I spent the evening reading a book I'd been postponing. Before bed, I checked my phone. Several more missed calls from Michael and Sarah, a message from Emma. "Grandma, our house is chaos. My parents are fighting. Daniel's panicking about money. Are you okay? Can I come over tomorrow?" I replied, "Yes, dear. I'd love to see you. I'm perfectly fine." Morning brought an unexpected surprise. Sarah standing on the doorstep, impeccably dressed with perfect styling and a strange smile. In her hands was a box of pastries from an expensive bakery. "Margaret, good morning." She handed me the box. "May I come in? We need to talk." I let her in silently, wondering what strategy she'd chosen. Sarah walked into the living room, giving me her usual appraising look that always made me feel cold. "Margaret." She sat on the couch edge, hands folded in her lap. "I think there's been a terrible misunderstanding." "Really?" I sat across from her without offering tea or coffee. "Michael shouldn't have sent that message." She shook her head with genuine regret on her face. "It was an emotional reaction. We were stressed about work, planning dinner." "Sarah," I interrupted, "let's not waste time. You're not here to apologize. You're here for the money." Her smile faltered momentarily, but quickly returned. "Margaret, that's not fair. I'm truly sorry for what happened. We all appreciate your help and support. You're an important part of our family. So important that you didn't want me at your table," I asked calmly, without anger. Sarah sighed as if explaining something to an uncomprehending child. "That night was special. We had important guests, potential clients. I wanted everything perfect. You know how important this is to my career." "And I would ruin it?" I raised an eyebrow. "With what exactly? My old-fashioned clothes? Inappropriate comments?" "That's not what I meant." She pursed her lips. "Margaret, let's be honest. You and I have always had a complicated relationship. But that's no reason to destroy the whole family. Michael's desperate. Daniel can't pay his bills. We're in danger of losing the house. The house I paid for, I reminded her. Which you helped pay for, she corrected. We put up significant money, too. I looked at this woman. Beautiful, confident, accustomed to getting what she wanted. She'd been part of my family for 22 years, but I'd never felt real connection to her. Sarah, I leaned forward. I will no longer finance your life. Not the house, not the cars, not Daniel's education. Nothing. This is my final decision. Her face changed. The mask of friendliness fell away, revealing cold calculation I'd always sensed beneath her smiles. You can't do this to us. Her voice hardened. After all we've done for you. What exactly have you done for me, Sarah? I asked with genuine curiosity. She stammered, clearly unprepared for such a question. We included you in our family, allowed you to be part of your grandchildren's lives, took care of you. Took care. I couldn't hold back a bitter laugh. When was the last time you asked how I was feeling? When you called just to talk, not to ask for money? Sarah stood, her face pale with anger. You're going to regret this, Margaret. We're the only family you have. Who will take care of you when you're too old to live alone? I'll take care of myself. I stood too. Just like I did my whole life before I started spending all my energy and money on your family. She headed for the door but stopped at the threshold. This isn't over, Margaret. Michael won't leave it alone. You're his mother. He has rights. Rights to what, Sarah? My money? I shook my head. Go away and don't come back until you learn basic respect. After Sarah left, I felt strangely empty, as if the final scene of a long play had been performed, the curtain fallen, and actors dispersed. I went to the window. The day was clear, sunny. Life continued. Neighbors worked in gardens, children rode bikes, the mail carrier delivered letters. My gaze fell on the kitchen table where a stack of unpaid bills lay. Before, I would have tackled them immediately, fearing missed deadlines and disappointing my family. Now I could pay them whenever I wanted. I could go shopping and buy myself a new dress without worrying if I had enough money for Daniel's tennis club. I could take that pottery class I'd wanted for ages. For the first time in years, I was truly free. Free from obligation, free from guilt, free from constant need to sacrifice my desires for others. I picked up my phone and dialed Laura's number. Remember you mentioned going to the coast next month? I asked when she answered. I'd like to join you if the invitation still stands. Margaret! I could hear joyful surprise in her voice. Of course, we'd be delighted, but I thought you wouldn't be able because of… I can now, I smiled. I no longer have any obligations holding me back. After talking to Laura, I pulled out an old notebook and started making a list. Things to do, places to go, dreams I'd always postponed for later because there were more important things. Michael's needs, Sarah's wants, Daniel's whims. Now it was my time, Margaret Henderson's time, and I was going to make the most of it. The phone rang again, Michael. I firmly declined the call. I had more important things to do today. It had been a surprisingly quiet month. I'd expected Michael and Sarah to try changing my mind, but after my daughter-in-law's visit, there was strange silence. They never called again, never came by unannounced. Only Emma stopped by a couple times, but we'd tacitly agreed not to discuss family drama. Thursday morning greeted me with bright sunshine. I sipped coffee leisurely on the porch, browsing through a travel catalog. A trip to the coast with Laura was scheduled for next month, but why not plan something else? I'd only seen Europe in pictures and movies. Robert had always dreamed of showing me Ireland, land of his ancestors. We'd been saving that trip for retirement, but when it came, his health no longer allowed traveling. I flipped through photos of Dublin, the cliffs of Moher, Ring of Kerry, imagining myself there with a camera in comfortable shoes, without having to rush home to help with grandchildren or solve Michael's next financial crisis. The doorbell interrupted my reverie. Laura stood on the doorstep with a large wicker basket. "Good morning, traveler," she smiled, entering the house. "I brought scones from the new Irish bakery and fresh gossip." I laughed as I led her to the porch. What better way to spend a Thursday? We settled outside. Laura poured coffee from her thermos and pulled out scones still warm from the oven. "So," she took a bite, "how's your new free life going?" "Strange," I admitted. "Sometimes I wake up feeling like I've forgotten something important, then remember the only person I need to care for is myself." Laura nodded understandingly. "That's normal. You've been living for others' needs so long, your body isn't used to the lack of stress yet." She was quiet for a moment, then added more seriously. "I saw Sarah at the grocery store yesterday. She was buying generic brands and markdown items, no delicacies she was so accustomed to." I raised an eyebrow. "Really? What did she look like?" "Not as polished as usual," Laura shrugged. "Hair a bit messy, clothes simpler. She didn't notice me, and I didn't say hello." I tried imagining Sarah without her usual glamour, difficult task. My daughter-in-law always looked like she'd stepped from a magazine cover. "I suppose they are tightening their budget," I said thoughtfully. "And rightfully so," Laura exclaimed with sudden passion. "Margaret, I've watched them exploit you for years, especially Sarah. That woman never appreciated your generosity or patience." I sighed. "I know. It's just strange thinking they might be struggling financially. Michael's never been good at saving money." "It's time he learned," Laura cut him off. "At his age, he should stand on his own feet, not cling to his mother's apron strings." I couldn't help smiling at my friend's bluntness. Laura always said what she thought without softening blows. Maybe that's why we'd been friends so many years. She was fresh air amid all the falseness. "Speaking of new life," Laura nodded at the catalog on the table. "What are you studying?" "I'm thinking about going to Ireland." I slid the catalog toward her. "Robert always wanted to show me Dublin." Laura beamed. "That's wonderful. When are you thinking of going?" "Maybe in the fall," I shrugged. "I still need to plan and prepare." "Why not sooner?" Laura flipped through catalog pages. "September is perfect for Ireland. Not too rainy yet, but cool enough for walking." I wondered what was holding me back. Before, there had always been reasons to postpone. Help with kids, be available for another Michael crisis, avoid spending money when family might need help. Now those reasons were gone. "You know, you're right," I smiled. "Why not? I'll call the agency today." Laura nodded contentedly. "Now that's the right decision. And you know what? If you want company, I could come along. Ireland's been on my wish list forever." We spent the morning discussing possible itineraries and sites we'd like to see. For the first time in ages, I felt genuinely excited, anticipating something new and wonderful. When Laura left, I immediately called the travel agency and booked a consultation for tomorrow. Then I pulled out an old atlas Robert had given me years ago and began studying Ireland's map, imagining myself in those mysterious places. The doorbell rang, interrupting my planning. I opened it and saw Daniel, disheveled, wrinkled shirt, dark circles under his eyes. "Grandma," he shifted awkwardly. "May I come in?" I stepped aside silently, letting him pass. Daniel walked into the living room and sat on the couch, rubbing his hands together nervously. "Would you like tea?" I asked. "No thanks." He shook his head. "Grandma, I need help." I sat across from him, keeping a calm expression. "What kind of help, Daniel?" He took a deep breath as if about to dive into cold water. "Money, Grandma. I need money. My card's been declined. The bank's demanding payment. I can't pay rent. My car—" His voice shook. "I'm completely screwed. Pardon the language." I looked at my grandson, a grown man who now looked like a lost child. Daniel had always been spoiled, first by Michael and Sarah, then by me. He'd never had to really fight for anything. "How much do you owe the bank?" I asked calmly. "5,000. He lowered his eyes. "Got a little carried away with credit cards last few months." "What did you spend that money on, Daniel?" He shrugged, not looking at me. "Various things. New gaming system, weekend trips with friends, some parties." I was silent, waiting for him to continue. Daniel finally looked up. "Grandma, I know I haven't been very attentive. I haven't called much, haven't visited much, but I really love you, and I'm really, really asking for help now. I'll pay you back. I promise." I looked at him carefully, trying to see sincerity behind those words. Daniel always had a way of being charming when he needed something, trait he'd inherited from Sarah. "Daniel," I finally spoke, "you're 21 years old. You've been working for an accounting firm almost 2 years now. Why haven't you learned to manage your finances?" He looked embarrassed. "I don't know. I never really thought about it. I could always ask my parents or you." "Exactly," I nodded. "There was always someone to solve your problems. But Daniel, you can't go on like this forever. Sooner or later, everyone has to learn to stand on their own feet." "I know, Grandma," he nodded enthusiastically. "And I will learn, I promise. Just help me this one last time. I'll get a second job, save money." I shook my head. "No, Daniel, I'm not giving you money." His face stretched in surprise. He clearly hadn't expected rejection. "But Grandma, what am I supposed to do?" "What adults do when they find themselves in difficult situations," I answered. "Look for solutions. Talk to the bank about restructuring debt. Find additional income. Cut expenses." Daniel looked at me as if I were speaking a foreign language. "But that's so complicated." "Life is complicated," I shrugged, "especially when you have to take responsibility for your actions." He jumped up, and I could see a range of emotions on his face: disbelief, resentment, anger. "So you're just abandoning me? After all these years of telling me you love me?" "I love you, Daniel." I remained calm. "That's why I refuse to continue supporting your addiction to my money." "That's not love. That's codependency, and it's hurting you more than helping." He was almost shouting, "You're just getting back at all of us because of some fight with Dad." I looked at my angry grandson and saw in him a reflection of Sarah. Same violent reaction to rejection, same inability to accept no for an answer. "Daniel, please sit down," I said quietly but firmly. To my surprise, he obeyed, flopping back onto the couch. "I'm not taking revenge on anyone. I just stopped being an ATM for my family, stopped buying love and respect that should be unconditional." I paused, giving him time to process my words. "Think about this. When was the last time you came to me just for fun, without asking for money or help? When you took interest in my life? My feelings?" Daniel was silent, avoiding my gaze. "You can't remember, can you?" I sighed. "That's the problem, Daniel. Our relationship has long since become a transaction. I give money, you pretend to care about me. It's not family, it's a business arrangement." "That's not true." He shook his head, but without the same confidence. "We care about you. We do." I raised an eyebrow. "Name one thing you've done for me unselfishly in the last year." Daniel hesitated, his forehead furrowed with concentration. I could see him trying to remember anything. A call, visit, gift that didn't involve a request or obligation. "I came to your birthday party," he finally squeezed out. "Yes, you did," I nodded. "An hour late, without a gift, and left right after cake saying you were meeting friends." He lowered his head. "I didn't mean to. I didn't think—" "That's right, Daniel. You weren't thinking. None of you were thinking about my feelings." I softened my tone. "I'm not angry at you. I really am. I'm just not going to participate in this unhealthy relationship anymore." We sat in silence. Daniel looked dejected, hunched on the couch. I suddenly saw him as the little boy I'd taught to ride his bike, stubborn but vulnerable. Look, I leaned toward him. I won't give you money, but I can offer something else. He looked up. What? My friend Francis Coleman, a lawyer, is looking for a part-time assistant. Nothing complicated, sorting documents, answering phones. It won't solve all your problems, but it'll be extra income. If you want, I can talk to him. Daniel looked surprised. You would do that for me? After everything I've said? You're my grandson, Daniel. I love you no matter what. But my love will no longer be expressed in checks and credit cards. He was silent for a moment, considering my words. Then he nodded slowly. Okay. Yeah, I'll give it a try. Thank you, Grandma. When Daniel left, I felt a strange mixture of sadness and satisfaction. Maybe this conversation was the first step toward building a new, healthier relationship with my grandson. Or maybe it was just another manipulation. Time would tell. That evening, Emma arrived. Unlike her brother, she looked composed and calm. I met Daniel on the way over, she said as she helped me make dinner. He seemed kind of quiet. We talked about money and responsibility. I chopped vegetables for salad. I wasn't sure he took it well. Emma nodded, stirring dressing. It's good for him to grow up a little. Daniel's always had it too easy. I glanced at my granddaughter. She and Daniel were close in age, but so different. Emma had always been more independent, more mature. How are things at home? I asked cautiously. Emma sighed. Honestly? Not great. My parents fight constantly. Mom blames Dad for not being able to convince you to return the financing. Dad says she's the one who ruined it with her arrogance. I'm sorry you have to be in the middle of this conflict. I put my hand on her shoulder. It's okay, she smiled weakly. I'd known for a long time their relationship wasn't very healthy. They were together mostly for status and comfort. When both those things were threatened, she didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. Michael and Sarah's marriage had always struck me as an odd union, my soft, compliant son and his ambitious, overbearing wife. Now that the financial cushion was gone, all the cracks in their relationship had become obvious. They're selling Mom's car, Emma continued, setting the table. The SUV you helped pay for last year, and they're looking to refinance the mortgage. I nodded without commenting. Part of me felt a prick of conscience. I didn't want my son to suffer. But the other part realized this was a necessary lesson. You know, Grandma, Emma sat at the table. I want you to know I support your decision. I looked at her in surprise. You do? Yes, she nodded. I've seen them use you for a long time, especially Mom. I tried talking to Dad, but he always made excuses. I sat beside her, unexpectedly touched by her words. Thank you, Emma. It means a lot to me. I just want you to be happy, she took my hand. You've taken care of all of us for so many years. It's time to think about yourself. We ate dinner talking about her work, my plans for Ireland, and books we'd recently read. Just normal conversation between two people interested in each other. No asking, no manipulation, no tension. This is exactly what I think family relationships should look like. When Emma was about to leave, she hugged me tighter than usual. You know I'll always be there for you, right? No matter what happens between you and my parents. I know, honey. I stroked her cheek. And I'll always be there for you, not because I have to, but because I want to. After Emma left, I sat in silence for a long time, thinking about the complexities of family. How strange that of all my family, it was my granddaughter who was most understanding, most mature. Maybe that was the point, to pass on not only genes and property, but also values, principles, the ability to truly love and care. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. Michael's number. I hesitated but decided to answer. Yes, Michael? Mom. His voice sounded strained. We need to talk tomorrow, as a family. About what? I asked calmly. About the situation we're in. About how we might fix it. I sighed. Michael, I told you and Sarah, my decision is final. Mom, please, pleading tone in his voice, at least hear us out. We're ready to compromise. I hesitated. Part of me didn't want to continue this pointless circle of conversations. But the other part, the wiser, calmer part, knew that complete break with my son wouldn't make me happy. Okay, Michael. 2:00 tomorrow afternoon. My place. Thank you, Mom. Relief in his voice was almost palpable. We'll be there. All of us. I hung up and went to the window. The evening sky was painted in shades of pink and gold. I thought about tomorrow's meeting, another round of family negotiations. But this time would be different. I had new rules,